Welcome to Sinister States.
You ever walk past a place that feels like it's holding its breath? Like the air itself is waiting for something to happen, or maybe for someone to come back. That's the feeling you get when you stand at the rusted gates of an abandoned theme park. The laughter is gone, the lights are out, but the ghosts, well, they're still there. Not the kind that rattle chains or float through walls, but the kind that linger in peeling paint, in the way weeds curl around a forgotten carousel horse, in the silence that settles over a place built for joy and now left to rot. My name's Jack. I'm not a detective, not a historian, not even a thrill seeker, really. I'm just someone who can't let go of a question once it's in my head. And the question that's been keeping me up at night is this: why do abandoned theme parks feel so wrong? Why do we build these places to be the happiest spots on earth, only to let them turn into nightmares when the crowds go home? Tonight, I want to take you on a journey, not just through the crumbling ruins and overgrown paths of forgotten amusement parks, but through the stories that cling to them, the secrets, the scandals, the tragedies, and the strange beauty that comes when a place meant for dreams becomes a stage for something darker. This isn't just a history lesson. It's a ghost story, a detective case, and a confession all rolled into one. So buckle up. The ride's about to begin. Let's start with a memory. Not mine, but one I borrowed from a woman named Linda. She grew up in Ohio, back when the world felt a little bigger and the summers a little longer. Her father worked at a place called Lakeview Park, a small amusement park on the edge of a man-made lake. The kind of place that never made it into the travel guides, but meant everything to the people who lived nearby. Linda remembers the smell of popcorn and hot asphalt, the way the Ferris wheel creaked in the wind, the sound of her father's laughter as he fixed the bumper cars for the 100th time. But she also remembers the day the park closed. It wasn't sudden, no disaster, no fire, no scandal. Just a slow, creeping sense that the world was moving on. The crowds got smaller, the paint started to peel, and one day the gates just didn't open. Linda's father lost his job. The lake turned green with algae. The Ferris wheel stood still, a skeleton against the sky. And Linda, who had always thought of the park as a place where anything was possible, learned that even the happiest places can die. That's the first thing you need to know about abandoned theme parks. They're not just places. They're memories, frozen in time, waiting for someone to remember them. And sometimes, those memories are darker than you'd expect. Let's talk about the first park on our list, Pripyat Amusement Park, Ukraine. You've seen the photos, even if you don't know the name. A rusted Ferris wheel, yellow gondolas swaying in the breeze, bumper cars half buried in weeds. It's the most famous abandoned theme park in the world, and for good reason. Pripyat was supposed to open on May 1st, 1986, just in time for the May Day celebrations. But 5 days before the grand opening, the Chernobyl nuclear disaster turned the city into a ghost town overnight. The park never opened. The rides never spun. The laughter never came. Instead, the Ferris wheel became a symbol of everything lost, a monument to a future that never happened. Some say the park was used for a few hours, as a distraction for children while their parents packed to evacuate. Others say it was never touched, that the dust on the seats is the same dust that settled the day the world ended. I visited Pripyat once, years ago, on a gray morning when the fog hung low over the city. The silence was absolute, broken only by the distant caw of a crow. I walked through the park, past the bumper cars, the shooting gallery, the rusted swing ride. Every step felt like trespassing, not just on private property, but on the memory of a city that never got to say goodbye. There's a kind of sadness in Pripyat that's hard to describe. It's not just the loss of life, or the fear of radiation, or the knowledge that nothing will ever grow here again. It's the sense that joy itself has been poisoned, that the very idea of happiness is dangerous. The Ferris wheel stands as a warning. Some dreams are too fragile to survive the real world, but not every abandoned park is a tragedy on that scale. Some are quieter, stranger, more personal. Take Dogpatch, USA, for example. Tucked away in the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, Dogpatch was built in the 1960s as a tribute to the comic strip Lil Abner. It was supposed to be a slice of hillbilly heaven, complete with a trout pond, a roller coaster called the Earthquake, and actors dressed as characters from the strip. For a while, it worked. Families came from all over to fish, to ride, to laugh at the corny jokes and the slapstick shows. But the world changed. The comic strip faded from memory. The rides broke down. The money dried up. By the 1990s, Dogpatch was a ghost town, its wooden buildings collapsing, its trout pond choked with weeds. I visited Dogpatch on a hot summer day, the kind where the air feels thick enough to chew. The entrance sign was still there, faded but legible. Welcome to Dogpatch, USA. Inside, the silence was broken only by the buzz of cicadas and the distant splash of a frog in the pond. The roller coaster was a tangle of rusted metal, the tracks warped and twisted like the bones of some ancient beast. The old general store was filled with broken glass and graffiti, the shelves empty except for a single, dust-covered can of beans. But what struck me most was the sense of longing. Dogpatch wasn't just abandoned, it was mourned. Locals still talked about it, still hoped someone would come along and bring it back to life. There were rumors of investors, of plans to restore the park, but nothing ever came of it. The past, it seemed, was too heavy to lift. Why do we abandon these places? Why do we let them rot, instead of tearing them down or building something new? Part of it is money, of course. It's expensive to demolish a theme park, to haul away the rides, to clean up the mess. But there's something else, too, something harder to name. Maybe it's guilt, or nostalgia, or the hope that someday, someone will come back and make it all right again. Or maybe it's fear. Fear of what we might find if we dig too deep. Fear of the stories that still linger in the shadows. Let's talk about one of those stories. Six Flags New Orleans. If you've ever driven through the outskirts of New Orleans, you've seen it. A tangle of roller coasters and water slides, half swallowed by weeds and floodwater. The park opened in 2000, a bright spot in a city that needed all the joy it could get. For 5 years, it was a place of laughter and light, a place where families could forget their troubles for a while. Then came Hurricane Katrina. The storm hit in August 2005, and the park was flooded under 7 feet of water. The rides were ruined, the buildings gutted, the grounds left to rot. Six Flags tried to rebuild, but the damage was too great. The park was abandoned, left to the elements and the vandals. But the story doesn't end there. Over the years, Six Flags New Orleans became a magnet for urban explorers, ghost hunters, and thrill seekers. People snuck in at night, filming themselves wandering through the ruins, searching for signs of life or death. Some claimed to hear laughter in the empty midway, or see shadows moving in the funhouse mirrors. Others found evidence of squatters, of parties, of rituals best left unmentioned. I went there once, with a friend who swore he'd seen something in the old water park. We climbed the fence at midnight, flashlights in hand, hearts pounding in our chests. The air was thick with the smell of mold and decay. Every step echoed in the empty halls. We found the remains of a birthday party, balloons, a half-eaten cake, a pile of soggy presents. Someone, it seemed, was still trying to celebrate, even in the ruins that we didn't see any ghosts that night. But as we left, I looked back at the Ferris wheel, silhouetted against the moon. For a moment, I thought I saw it move, just a little, as if the wind was trying to start it up again. Or maybe it was just my imagination, playing tricks in the dark. There's a pattern here, if you look close enough. Theme parks are built on hope, on the promise of escape, of wonder, of a world where anything is possible. But when that hope dies, it doesn't just disappear. It curdles, it festers, it turns into something else. Something that draws us in, even as it pushes us away. Maybe that's why we're so fascinated by abandoned parks. They're not just ruins, they're reminders. Reminders that joy is fragile, that dreams can die, that even the brightest lights can go out. But also reminders that stories never really end. They just wait, in the dark, for someone to come looking. If you want to understand the true power of abandoned theme parks, you have to look past the rust and the rot. You have to see the stories that cling to every surface, the memories that refuse to fade. Because every park, no matter how forgotten, was once someone's favorite place in the world. Let's leave the United States for a moment and travel east to Japan. There, hidden in the forests of Nara Prefecture, lies the remains of Nara Dreamland. Opened in 1961, Dreamland was Japan's answer to Disneyland, a place of castles and coasters, of parades and popcorn. For decades, it was a wonderland for families, a place where the ordinary rules of life didn't apply. But Dreamland was always living in the shadow of its American cousin. When Tokyo Disneyland opened in 1983, Dreamland's fate was sealed. The crowds dwindled, the rides grew old, and by 2006, the gates closed for good. For years, the park sat empty, its fairy tale castle crumbling, its roller coasters silent. But Dreamland didn't die quietly. Urban explorers from around the world flocked to its gates, drawn by the promise of adventure and the thrill of trespassing. They climbed the rusted tracks, wandered through the empty arcades, and took photos that spread across the internet like wildfire. In those images, Dreamland became something new, a symbol of lost innocence, of beauty in decay. I never made it to Dreamland before it was demolished, but I know people who did. They talk about the way the fog would roll in at dawn, turning the castle into a ghostly silhouette. They remember the sound of their footsteps echoing in the empty parade grounds, the way the wind would catch the tattered banners and make them dance. Some say they felt watched, as if the park itself was waiting for someone to bring it back to life. But no one ever did. In 2017, the bulldozers came, and Dreamland was erased from the map. All that's left now are the stories, the photos, and the memories of a place that tried to be magic and almost succeeded. Contrast that with another park, one that refuses to die no matter how many times it's abandoned. I'm talking about Spree Park in Berlin, Germany. Opened in 1969 as Kulturpark Plannerwald, it was East Germany's answer to Western amusement parks, a place of spinning teacups, dinosaur statues, and a giant Ferris wheel that towered over the trees. After the fall of the Berlin Wall, Spree Park was privatized and rebranded, but the new owners struggled to keep it afloat. By 2002, the park was bankrupt and the gates were locked. But Spree Park didn't fade quietly into history. Instead, it became a playground for artists, filmmakers, and thrill seekers. The dinosaur statues became canvases for graffiti. The Ferris wheel, though rusted and creaking, still turned in the wind, a slow, mournful dance. I visited Spree Park on a gray afternoon, the kind where the sky feels too heavy to hold up. The entrance was overgrown, the ticket booth shattered. Inside, the rides were frozen in time, a swan boat half sunk in a pond, a roller coaster track twisted like a snake, a carousel horse missing its head. But there was life, too. A group of teenagers had set up a picnic in the shadow of the Ferris wheel, laughing and sharing stories. An artist was painting a mural on the side of the old funhouse, turning decay into something beautiful. That's the thing about Spree Park. It refuses to be forgotten. Even in ruin, it draws people in, gives them a place to dream, to create, to remember. Maybe that's why the city of Berlin has plans to restore it, to turn it into a public park where the ghosts of the past can dance with the dreams of the future. But not every park gets a second chance. Some are swallowed whole by the land, their stories lost to time. Take Okpo Land in South Korea. Built in the 1990s on the island of Jeoje, Okpo Land was a small park with big ambitions. It had a duck-themed roller coaster, a haunted house, and a view of the sea that could take your breath away. But Okpo Land was cursed from the start. Rumors swirled of accidents, of rides that broke down, of children who never made it home. The most infamous story is of the duck roller coaster, where a car supposedly derailed, killing a young girl. Whether the story is true or not, it was enough to scare people away. By 1999, the park was abandoned, its gates chained shut. For years, Okpo Land sat empty, the duck coaster frozen mid-ride, the haunted house living up to its name. Urban explorers who braved the site reported a sense of unease, of being watched. Some found children's shoes scattered in the grass. Others heard laughter echoing in the wind. In 2011, the park was finally demolished, but the stories linger, whispered among locals and thrill-seekers alike. Why do these stories stick with us? Why do we care so much about places we've never been, about rides we've never ridden? Maybe it's because theme parks are more than just entertainment. They're promises. Promises of happiness, of escape, of a world where anything is possible. When those promises are broken, it feels personal, like a betrayal. But there's another side to the story, one that's harder to face. Sometimes, the darkness isn't just in the past, it's in the present. Let's talk about Wonderland Amusement Park, outside Beijing, China. Billed as the largest amusement park in Asia, Wonderland was supposed to be a rival to Disneyland, a place of castles and coasters, of dreams and delight. Construction began in the 1990s, but almost immediately, things went wrong. Disputes over land, money, and politics brought the project to a halt. The half-built castle stood alone in a field of weeds, a monument to ambition gone awry. For years, Wonderland was a curiosity, a place where farmers grazed their cattle among the ruins, where photographers came to capture the surreal beauty of a castle with no kingdom. The park was never finished, never opened, never filled with laughter. In 2013, the site was finally demolished, replaced by a shopping mall. Wonderland is a different kind of ghost story. It's not about tragedy or disaster, but about dreams that never had a chance to come true. It's a reminder that sometimes the scariest thing isn't what happened, but what could have been. There's a pattern here, a rhythm to the rise and fall of these parks. They begin with hope, with ambition, with the promise of something new. They thrive for a while, drawing crowds, making memories. But then, something changes. Maybe it's money, maybe it's tragedy, maybe it's just the slow march of time. The crowds thin, the rides break down, and the gates close for good. But the story doesn't end there. Because abandoned theme parks are never truly empty. They're filled with echoes, with memories, with the ghosts of laughter and the shadows of fear. They become canvases for new stories, new dreams, new adventures. I've spent years chasing these stories, wandering through the ruins, talking to the people who remember. I've met caretakers who still walk the grounds, long after the crowds have gone. I've met artists who turn decay into beauty, explorers who risk arrest for a glimpse of the past. I've met people who can't let go, who still hope that someday someone will bring the magic back. And I've learned that every park, no matter how forgotten, has a story worth telling. Let's go back to the United States, to a place called Holy Land, USA, in Waterbury, Connecticut. Holy Land wasn't a theme park in the traditional sense. No roller coasters, no spinning teacups. Instead, it was a religious attraction built in the 1950s by a man named John Greco. He wanted to create a miniature version of Bethlehem and Jerusalem, complete with replicas of biblical scenes, statues, and a giant illuminated cross. For decades, Holy Land was a pilgrimage site, drawing thousands of visitors each year. But after Greco's death in 1986, the park fell into disrepair. The statues crumbled, the buildings collapsed, and the cross went dark. Vandals and thrill seekers took over, turning Holy Land into a place of broken dreams and shattered faith. But even in ruin, Holy Land had power. Locals told stories of miracles, of visions, of a sense of peace that lingered among the ruins. In 2013, a new cross was erected and efforts began to restore the site. Today, Holy Land is open to visitors once more, a place where the past and the present meet, where faith and decay walk hand in hand. What is it about these places that draws us in? Is it the thrill of danger, the beauty of decay, the hope of finding something lost? Or is it something deeper, a need to believe that even in ruin, there's still magic, still meaning, still a story worth telling? I don't have all the answers. But I know this. Every abandoned theme park is a mirror reflecting our hopes, our fears, our dreams, and our failures. They remind us that nothing lasts forever, that even the brightest lights can go out. But they also remind us that stories never really end. They just wait, in the dark, for someone to come looking. If you've ever stood at the edge of an abandoned theme park at dusk, you know the feeling. The world seems to hold its breath. The air is thick with the scent of old wood, rust, and something else, something you can't quite name. It's the weight of stories, of memories, of all the laughter and fear and hope that once filled these empty spaces. It's the sense that you're not alone, even when you know you are. Let's talk about the people who can't stay away. The urban explorers, the photographers, the storytellers. They come with cameras and flashlights, with notebooks and nerves of steel. They slip through broken fences and climb over crumbling walls, drawn by the promise of adventure and the thrill of the unknown. Some are looking for beauty, some for answers, some just for the rush of being somewhere they're not supposed to be. I met one of them, a woman named Riley, in the ruins of an old amusement park outside Cleveland. She was there with her camera, capturing the way the light filtered through the shattered windows of the funhouse. We talked for a while, swapping stories and tips, and I asked her why she did it, why she risked arrest, injury, even ghosts, just to wander through places everyone else had forgotten. She smiled, a little sad, a little defiant. Because these places matter, she said. Because they're not just ruins. They're stories. And if we don't tell them, who will? Riley's right. Every abandoned theme park is a story waiting to be told. Some are tragedies, some are comedies, some are mysteries that may never be solved. But all of them are worth remembering. Let's visit another park, one that's become a legend among explorers, Joyland Amusement Park in Wichita, Kansas. Opened in 1949, Joyland was a family-run park, famous for its wooden roller coaster, its Wurlitzer organ, and its hand-carved carousel. For decades, it was the heart of summer in Wichita, a place where generations of families made memories. But time is a cruel master. The park struggled with maintenance, with vandalism, with the slow decline that comes when the world moves on. In 2006, Joyland closed its gates for the last time. The rides were left to rot, the organ fell silent, and the carousel horses gathered dust. But Joyland didn't fade quietly. It became a magnet for explorers, for artists, for anyone who wanted to touch the past. People broke in to take photos, to film videos, to leave their mark on the walls. Some came for the thrill, others for the nostalgia. Some claimed to see ghosts, children running through the midway, a woman in white standing by the carousel, the organ playing itself in the dead of night. That I spent a night in Joyland once, with a group of friends and a single flashlight. We wandered through the empty arcade, the broken bumper cars, the roller coaster tracks swallowed by weeds. The silence was heavy, broken only by the creak of old wood and the distant sound of trains passing in the night. We didn't see any ghosts, but we felt them, felt the weight of all the summers that had come and gone, the laughter that still echoed in the dark. Joyland is gone now, demolished in 2015. But the stories remain, passed down from explorer to explorer, from memory to memory. The park may be gone, but its spirit lingers, a reminder that nothing is ever truly lost. Let's move south to Florida, home of the world's most famous theme parks and some of its most forgotten. Everyone knows Disney World and Universal Studios, but few remember the parks that didn't make it, the ones swallowed by time and Swamp Point. One of the strangest is Splendid China, a miniature park built in the 1990s to showcase the wonders of Chinese culture. It had replicas of the Great Wall, the Forbidden City, the Terracotta Army, all built to scale, all painstakingly detailed. But Splendid China never found its audience. The crowd stayed away, the money ran out, and by 2003, the park was abandoned. For years, Splendid China was a playground for explorers and vandals. The miniatures were smashed, the buildings covered in graffiti, the grounds overrun by weeds. But even in ruin, the park had a strange beauty, a sense of grandeur, of ambition, of dreams that refused to die. I walked through Splendid China on a rainy afternoon, the sky heavy with thunder. The Great Wall was crumbling, the terracotta warriors toppled, but the spirit of the place lingered. It was a reminder that even the grandest dreams can fall, but that doesn't make them any less worth dreaming. Contrast that with another Florida park, one that's become a legend in its own right. Miracle Strip Amusement Park in Panama City Beach. Opened in 1963, Miracle Strip was a classic seaside park filled with rides, games, and the smell of salt and popcorn. For decades, it was the heart of the beach, a place where families came to play, to laugh, to forget the world for a while. But the world changed. The crowds thinned, the money dried up, and in 2004, Miracle Strip closed its gates. The rides were sold off, the grounds left to rot, but the memories lingered. Locals still talk about the Starliner roller coaster, the Tilt-A-Whirl, the haunted house that was more funny than scary. In 2010, a group of fans tried to bring Miracle Strip back, reopening a smaller version of the park with some of the original rides. For a while, it worked. The laughter returned, the lights came back on. But it wasn't the same. The world had moved on, and by 2015, the park closed again. Miracle Strip is a story of hope and heartbreak, of dreams that refuse to die even when the world says no. It's a reminder that sometimes the past is too heavy to carry, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't try it out. Let's talk about the people who keep these stories alive. Not just the explorers and the fans, but the caretakers, the guardians, the ones who refuse to let go. I met one of them, an old man named Frank, at the ruins of a park in New Jersey. He'd worked there for 40 years, fixing rides, sweeping the midway, keeping the lights on long after the crowds had gone. Frank still came by every week, walking the grounds, checking the fences, making sure the vandals hadn't done too much damage. He told me stories of the old days, the summer nights, the fireworks, the way the park would come alive when the sun went down. He talked about the families, the kids, the laughter that filled the air, but he also talked about the end, the day the gates closed, the rides were sold, the lights went out for good. He talked about the silence, the emptiness, the sense of loss that never really went away. People think these places are just rides and games, he said, his voice soft. But they're more than that. They're memories. They're home. Frank's right. Abandoned theme parks are more than just ruins. They're the sum of all the dreams, all the hopes, all the stories that once filled their empty spaces. They're reminders of what we've lost and what we still hope to find. Let's visit one more park, one that's become a symbol of both hope and heartbreak. Heritage USA in Fort Mill, South Carolina. Built in the 1980s by televangelist Jim Bakker, Heritage USA was a Christian theme park, complete with a water park, a hotel, and a replica of the upper room from the Bible. For a while, it was the third most visited park in the country, drawing millions of visitors each year. But scandal and disaster struck. Bakker was convicted of fraud. A hurricane damaged the park, and by 1989, Heritage USA was abandoned. The rides rusted, the hotel filled with mold. The grounds became a playground for explorers and thrill seekers. But even in ruin, Heritage USA had power. People came to pray, to remember, to hope for a miracle. Some claimed to see visions, to feel a sense of peace among the ruins. In recent years, parts of the park have been restored, turned into a church and a retreat center. But the ghosts of the past still linger, reminders of both the heights of hope and the depths of disappointment. What is it about these places that draws us in? Is it the thrill of danger, the beauty of decay, the hope of finding something lost? Or is it something deeper, a need to believe that even in ruin, there's still magic, still meaning, still a story worth telling? Maybe it's all of those things. Maybe it's none of them. Maybe it's just the simple truth that we're all searching for something we lost, something we never had, something we hope to find in the ruins of the past. If you've ever wondered what it's like to walk through a place where time has stopped, you don't have to look far. Abandoned theme parks are everywhere, hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone to notice them. They're in the woods behind your childhood home, on the edge of forgotten towns, in the shadows of cities that never sleep. They're reminders that nothing lasts forever, that even the brightest lights can go out, leaving only memories behind. Let's travel to Australia, to a place called Luna Park, Sydney. Luna Park is still open today, its famous smiling face welcoming visitors from around the world. But in the 1970s, the park was nearly lost forever. On a cold night in June 1979, a fire broke out in the ghost train ride. 7 people died, 6 children and 1 adult. The cause of the fire was never officially determined, but rumors of arson, negligence, and even organized crime have haunted the park ever since. For years, Luna Park was a place of mourning, its gates closed, its rides silent. The city debated whether to tear it down or try to save it. In the end, Luna Park was rebuilt, its smiling face restored, its rides brought back to life. But the ghosts of that night still linger. Some say you can hear the laughter of children in the dark or see shadows moving through the old ghost train building. Others say the park is cursed, that it will never truly escape its past. I visited Luna Park on a rainy afternoon, the kind where the world feels washed clean and every sound is sharper than usual. The rides were running, the lights were bright, but there was a heaviness in the air, a sense that the past was never far away. I stood by the entrance to the ghost train, listening to the rain on the roof, and wondered what stories the park would tell if it could speak. Contrast that with another park, one that never got a second chance, Chippewa Lake Park in Ohio. Opened in 1878, Chippewa Lake was one of the oldest amusement parks in the United States. For over a century, it was a place of joy, of summer nights and fireworks, of families and first loves. But by the 1970s, the crowds had dwindled, the rides had aged, and the park was losing money. In 1978, exactly 100 years after it opened, Chippewa Lake closed its gates for the last time, but the park wasn't demolished. It was left to the elements, to the weeds and the weather, to the slow, relentless march of time. For decades, the rides stood silent, the Ferris wheel rusting in the sun, the roller coaster tracks swallowed by trees, the ballroom collapsing under its own weight. Explorers came and went, taking photos, telling stories, leaving their own marks on the ruins. I walked through Chippewa Lake Park one autumn afternoon, the leaves turning gold and red, the air crisp and clean. The silence was deep, broken only by the sound of my footsteps on the old midway. I found the remains of the carousel, the horses half buried in leaves, their paint faded but their eyes still bright. I stood by the lake, watching the sun set over the water, and felt the weight of 100 years of memories pressing in around me. Chippewa Lake is gone now, the land cleared for new development. But for a while, it was a place where the past and the present met, where the ghosts of summer still danced in the fading light. That let's talk about another kind of abandonment, the kind that happens not because of disaster or decline, but because of change. In the heart of New Orleans, there's a place called Pontchartrain Beach. Opened in 1928, it was a classic seaside amusement park filled with rides, games, and the smell of salt and popcorn. For decades, it was the heart of summer in New Orleans, a place where families came to play, to laugh, to forget the world for a while. But the world changed. The city grew, the land became more valuable, and by 1983, Pontchartrain Beach closed its gates. The rides were sold off, the grounds left to rot. The beach itself was swallowed by development, the memories fading into the city's endless hum. But for those who remember, Pontchartrain Beach is still alive. They talk about the Zephyr roller coaster, the wild mouse, the way the lights would shimmer on the water at night. They remember the music, the laughter, the sense of freedom that came with a ticket to ride. For them, the park is more than a memory, it's a piece of who they are. Why do we hold on to these places, even after they're gone? Why do we tell their stories, visit their ruins, dream of bringing them back to life? Maybe it's because theme parks are more than just rides and games. They're promises of happiness, of escape, of a world where anything is possible. When those promises are broken, it feels personal, like a betrayal. But there's another side to the story, one that's harder to face. Sometimes, the darkness isn't just in the past, it's in the present. Let's talk about the abandoned parks that never made the headlines, the ones that slipped quietly into the shadows. In every country, in every city, there are parks that opened with hope and closed with a whisper. Their names are forgotten, their stories lost, but their ghosts linger, waiting for someone to remember. I found one of these parks in the mountains of Italy, a place called Cansano. Once a medieval village, Cansano was transformed in the 1960s into a city of toys, a sprawling amusement park and resort. For a few years, it was a playground for the rich, filled with rides, casinos, and dreams of endless fun. But a landslide in 1976 cut off the only road to the park, and Cansano was abandoned almost overnight. Today, the ruins of Cansano are a surreal mix of old and new. Medieval towers standing beside crumbling roller coasters, graffiti covering the walls of once grand hotels. The silence is deep, the sense of loss palpable. But there's beauty, too. And there's a pattern here, a rhythm to the rise and fall of these parks. They begin with hope, with ambition, with the promise of something new. They thrive for a while, drawing crowds, making memories. But then, something changes. Maybe it's money, maybe it's tragedy, maybe it's just the slow march of time. The crowds thin, the rides break down, and the gates close for good. But the story doesn't end there. Because abandoned theme parks are never truly empty. They're filled with echoes, with memories, with the ghosts of laughter and the shadows of fear. They become canvases for new stories, new dreams, new adventures. I've spent years chasing these stories, wandering through the ruins, talking to the people who remember. I've met caretakers who still walk the grounds, long after the crowds have gone. I've met artists who turn decay into beauty, explorers who risk arrest for a glimpse of the past. I've met people who can't let go, who still hope that someday, someone will bring the magic back. And I've learned that every park, no matter how forgotten, has a story worth telling. Let's go back to the United States, to a place called Holy Land, USA, in Waterbury, Connecticut. Holy Land wasn't a theme park in the traditional sense. No roller coasters, no spinning teacups. Instead, it was a religious attraction built in the 1950s by a man named John Greco. He wanted to create a miniature version of Bethlehem and Jerusalem, complete with replicas of biblical scenes, statues, and a giant illuminated cross. For decades, Holy Land was a pilgrimage site, drawing thousands of visitors each year. But after Greco's death in 1986, the park fell into disrepair. The statues crumbled, the buildings collapsed, and the cross went dark. Vandals and thrill seekers took over, turning Holy Land into a place of broken dreams and shattered faith. But even in ruin, Holy Land had power. Locals told stories of miracles, of visions, of a sense of peace that lingered among the ruins. In 2013, a new cross was erected and efforts began to restore the site. Today, Holy Land is open to visitors once more, a place where the past and the present meet, where faith and decay walk hand in hand. What is it about these places that draws us in? Is it the thrill of danger, the beauty of decay, the hope of finding something lost? Or is it something deeper, a need to believe that even in ruin, there's still magic, still meaning, still a story worth telling? I don't have all the answers, but I know this. Every abandoned theme park is a mirror reflecting our hopes, our fears, our dreams, and our failures. They remind us that nothing lasts forever, that even the brightest lights can go out. But they also remind us that stories never really end. They just wait, in the dark, for someone to come looking. If you've made it this far, you know that abandoned theme parks are more than just places. They're living, breathing stories. They're the echoes of laughter, the shadows of dreams, the silent witnesses to hope and heartbreak. But there's one more layer to this story, one that's harder to see, but just as real. The way these parks change us, the way they linger in our minds long after we've left their gates behind. Let's talk about the people who can't let go. The ones who return, year after year, to the ruins of their childhood, searching for something they lost. I met a man named David at the site of Rocky Point Park in Rhode Island. Rocky Point was a legend, a seaside amusement park that opened in the 1840s and ran for over 150 years. It survived wars, depressions, hurricanes, and changing times. But in 1995, the park closed for good, a victim of bankruptcy and neglect. David grew up at Rocky Point. His father worked the rides, his mother sold tickets, and he spent every summer running wild through the Midway. When the park closed, David was in his 20s, just starting his own family. But he never forgot. Every year, on the anniversary of the park's closing, he comes back. He walks the grounds, now a public park, and remembers the way things used to be, the smell of fried dough, the sound of the roller coaster, the feel of the ocean breeze on his face. He told me, it's not just about the rides. It's about who I was, who we all were, when this place was alive. Coming back here, it's like visiting an old friend. Even if that friend is gone, you still want to say hello. David's story isn't unique. All over the world, people return to the ruins of their past, searching for pieces of themselves. Some find comfort, some find sorrow, some find a kind of peace. But all of them find something worth remembering. Let's visit another park, one that's become a symbol of both loss and resilience. Magic Harbor in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Magic Harbor opened in the 1970s, a pirate-themed park filled with rides, shows, and dreams of endless summer. For a while, it was a hit, drawing families from across the region. But competition was fierce, and by the 1990s, Magic Harbor was struggling. The park closed, reopened, and closed again, each time a little more faded, a little more forgotten. Today, the site is home to a campground, but the ghosts of Magic Harbor linger. Locals tell stories of the old pirate ship, the haunted house, the way the lights would shimmer on the water at night. Some say you can still hear the music if you listen closely or see the shadows of children playing in the grass. Magic Harbor is a reminder that even when a place is gone, its spirit can live on, in memories, in stories, in the hearts of those who refuse to forget. But not every story ends in sorrow. Some parks find new life, new purpose, new hope. In the heart of Detroit, there's a place called Boblo Island. Once a thriving amusement park, Boblo Island was famous for its steamboat rides, its dance hall, its roller coasters, and funhouse. For nearly a century, it was the place to be on a summer day, a world apart from the city's troubles. But by the 1990s, Boblo Island was in decline. The crowds thinned, the rides broke down, and in 1993, the park closed for good. The island was left to the elements, the buildings crumbling, the memories fading, but Boblo Island didn't die. In recent years, the island has been redeveloped, the old dance hall restored, the grounds turned into homes and parks. The spirit of the place lingers, a reminder that even in ruin, there's hope for renewal. I visited Boblo Island on a bright spring morning, the air filled with birdsong and the scent of fresh grass. The dance hall was alive with music, the old steamboat dock still standing. I watched families picnicking on the lawn, children running through the trees, and thought about all the summers that had come and gone. Boblo Island is proof that the past can be honored, even as we build something new. Let's talk about the future. What happens to these places when the crowds are gone, when the rides are silent, when the gates are locked for good? Some are demolished, their stories lost to time. Some are reclaimed by nature, their ruins swallowed by trees and vines. Some are reborn, transformed into parks, museums, or homes. But all of them leave a mark, a scar, a memory, a story that refuses to die. They remind us that nothing lasts forever, that even the brightest lights can go out. But they also remind us that hope is never truly lost, that even in the darkest places, there's still a chance for something new. If you ever find yourself standing at the gates of an abandoned theme park, take a moment to listen. Listen to the echoes of laughter, the whispers of dreams, the silence that speaks louder than words. Remember the people who built these places, who filled them with joy and wonder. Remember the stories, the memories, the hope that still lingers in the air. And remember that you're not alone. All over the world, people are drawn to these places, searching for something they lost, something they hope to find. They come with cameras and notebooks, with memories and dreams, with the hope that maybe, just maybe, they'll find a piece of themselves in the ruins. So why do we keep coming back? Why do we tell these stories, visit these ruins, dream of bringing them back to life? Maybe it's because we need to believe that even in ruin, there's still magic, still meaning, still a story worth telling. Maybe it's because we're all searching for something we lost, something we never had, something we hope to find in the shadows of the past. Or maybe it's just because we can't let go. Because the past is always with us, whispering in our ears, calling us back to the places where we once felt alive. As the sun sets over the ruins, as the shadows grow long and the air grows still, remember this. Every abandoned theme park is a story, a memory, a dream that refuses to die. They are the haunted houses of our hearts, the carousels of our childhood, the roller coasters of our hopes and fears. They are reminders that nothing lasts forever, but that doesn't mean we should stop dreaming. Because even in the darkest places, even in the ruins of the past, there's still a spark of magic, waiting for someone to find it. So the next time you pass by a rusted gate, a crumbling ride, a field where laughter once echoed. Stop for a moment. Listen, remember, dream, because the story isn't over. Not yet. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the creepy history of abandoned theme parks. If you enjoyed this story, there's more to discover, more parks, more memories, more mysteries waiting in the shadows. And if you have your own story, your own memory, your own ghost from the past, I hope you'll share it. Because the more we remember, the more we keep the magic alive. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep exploring, and never stop believing in the power of a good story. But before we close the gates for good, let's take one last walk through the shadows. There's something about abandoned theme parks that lingers in the mind, a question that refuses to be answered. What do we leave behind when the music stops? Is it just rust and ruin? Or is it something more, a trace of wonder, a spark of hope, a memory that refuses to fade? I think about the first time I ever set foot in an abandoned park.